I was 9 when I learned how thin the world can feel between safe and wrong. Our townhouse row sat off a short street in a Midwestern suburb. Trim lawns, mailboxes, the low hum of weekend joggers. My bedroom was upstairs, right above the patio. A waist-high fence separated our small concrete slab from the footpath beyond. People walked by all the time, but people didn't stand on our patio. That was the rule the world followed, until the day it didn't, and the sound outside my window made me think my lost cat had finally come home. I came home an hour before my mum most days. She worked the morning shift, trusted me to lock the front door and double-check the back slider. I did it by habit, click, tug, breathe. Then I'd rush upstairs, power on the PlayStation, and cram in as much as possible before homework. That day, a high, thin sound leaked through the glass above the patio, like a cat's cry or maybe a squeaky hinge. Hope lit up in my chest. I thought of the orange Tom that had been missing for months. I bolted downstairs, heart bumping with that one-in-a-million feeling. I slid the curtain aside and froze. A man stood on our patio. Tall, shoulders hunched, long dark hair drifted across his eyes like a curtain he hadn't noticed. He was making the sound, high, breathy, nearly a meow. Brown spit streaked his chin. Our metal ashtray sat on the small table. He leaned, lifted, and chewed. For a second, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Then my brain snapped a picture. Cigarette butts, wet and mashed between his teeth. The scream ripped out of me before I knew I was breathing. The man didn't flinch. He kept eating from the ashtray, making those small, high sounds, almost happy, almost infant. I stumbled back, slammed the kitchen light off like it could hide me, and sprinted upstairs 2 steps at a time. I locked my bedroom door, crawled under the comforter, phone shaking in my hand as I called my mom. She told me to stay put. Then I waited with the phone to my ear, listening to the house breathe. Time folded. The sounds below swelled and thinned. The mewling, a wet scrape, a soft clink of metal. Then sirens in the distance, moving closer, louder, then cutting out right beside our fence. A man and a woman's voices floated up, careful and professional. "Sir?" Step back from the door, the mewling climbed, higher, faster, like a kettle screaming. I pressed my eye to the window. From my angle, I could see the officers at the fence, but not the man under my ledge, only his shadow moving across the concrete. They vaulted the fence. The shadow lunged. A sound exploded, animal, ragged, impossible, and the woman went down hard. The male officer fired his taser. The man convulsed on the concrete, heels hammering the slab, still keening. It wasn't a fight so much as a systems failure, the wrong body in the wrong place, every alarm going off at once. I stood frozen in the window, crying without realizing it, watching chaos pour onto our tidy patio like black paint spreading in water. Backup. An ambulance, neighbors clustering near the curb, hands to their mouths, whispering names I didn't know. The officer glanced up and spotted me. "Kid," he said, not unkind, "I hope you didn't see all that." I cried harder. Mrs. Jensen from 2 doors down slipped in through our front door like a grandmother ghost and kept me talking until my mum arrived, all breath and keys and apologies. The patrol car doors swallowed the man. The patio looked smaller somehow, like the world had shrunk to fit what happened. That night the officer came back. He took off his hat, sat at our kitchen table, and told us the part that made the world tilt again. The man had a name, Eli, and a diagnosis. He'd left a care home a few miles away. Years earlier, before we lived here, Eli had lived in our unit with his mother. After she died, he was moved. The officer said Eli was strong in a way some people are, coiled, rigid, reflexive. The patio, the ashtray, the sound. He was orbiting a memory he couldn't let go. He probably thought he was coming home, the officer said. He wasn't trying to scare you. He was trying to find his routine. I nodded because adults expect nods. Inside, I was still a child, jerking awake to a scream that felt like it lived in my bones. I asked if it would ever happen again. The officer promised it wouldn't. We believed him because promises are part of another routine, one that tells kids the world is mapped and fences hold. Eventually the house exhaled and I slept. Years dissolved and left their dust on everything. I grew up. My parents moved out. I bought the townhouse partly to prove I wasn't afraid, partly because it never stopped feeling like the place where my life forked. On Sundays, I drank coffee on that same patio, the fence a little grayer, the slab a little cracked. The neighborhood stayed itself, strollers, joggers, the neighbor's sprinkler ticking like a metronome. The house didn't mind what we remembered in it. It just held the shape of our days. One quiet morning, a man stopped at my fence and stared. Hair gone grey, shoulders still that same hunch, as if gravity preferred him. He didn't wave. He made a sound, thin and high, and the years peeled back like old paint. I knew him before I knew him. My heart pounded. The good part of growing up is you get a second to choose. I chose not to run. I lifted a hand. Hey. He looked at my hand, then at the fence, then at me. Do you want to come down? I heard myself ask, careful like the words might shatter. Eli's eyes brightened behind the curtain of hair. He cleared the fence in a single practiced swing and landed on the slab. For a ridiculous heartbeat, I pictured the officer's partner dropping like a cut string. But Eli just smiled, small and crooked, like the first try after a long winter. The sound he made was less sharp now, almost a laugh. He pointed at the sliding door and at me, asking a question without words. Come inside, I said, slower, checking the hinges in my voice. The living room was both the same and not. A different couch, different rug, the same afternoon light across the wall. Eli moved like he was reading Braille with his feet. When he saw the TV remote, he didn't hesitate. Click, cartoons. The bright voices filled the room like birds released from a box. His entire face loosened. He sank into the couch with a sigh I felt in my own chest, as if the house itself had inhaled and finally let go. I gave him space to have the moment. He laughed at the wrong times and exactly the right ones. His hands fluttered when a character jumped. Every so often he glanced toward the hallway that would have led to his mother's room long ago. Not searching, remembering. The sound he made now wasn't the high keen I'd feared as a kid. It was lighter, like air escaping a balloon shaped like a worry. I realized my hands had stopped shaking. Practical thoughts returned like a to-do list. I needed to call someone. I stepped into the kitchen and phoned the care home, listed in an old note in my mother's file drawer. 2 staffers arrived 10 minutes later, soft-voiced and careful. Eli resisted at first, stiffening, eyes glossy. They didn't pull. They waited. I put a hand to my chest and then to the couch, a small pantomime of stay, then pointed to Sunday on the calendar. I didn't know if it would land. It did. He stood crying and let them lead him out. I called the facility 2 days later. We made a deal that wasn't a contract so much as a promise with a time attached. Every Sunday, same hour, Eli could visit with staff. We'd watch cartoons. We'd let the house be 2 houses at once, the one I paid for and the one his memory kept. They told me it might be the highlight of his week. I said that sounded about right. The world felt mapped again, not because fences held, but because someone would open the gate. The first Sunday, he brought a plastic grocery sack folded into a perfect square. He smoothed it on the table like a placemat. We watched silly shows. He echoed lines, delighted when I laughed where he did. He didn't touch the ashtray. I'd thrown the old one away years ago, but I bought a new metal dish to hold peppermint candies. Eli treated them like prizes, worked through one slowly, eyes half closed. It was the same ritual as before, rewritten. We became a routine. The staff called ahead. I learned to make the living room a little quieter. Dim lights, fewer shadows. Eli learned my name. He said it like a note struck with two fingers. He called the cartoons colors. Sometimes he'd walk to the hallway and stand with his palm on the wall, respectful as a churchgoer. If grief is a place, he knew the address better than anyone. I let him stand there. The house didn't mind. Every time I thought about 9-year-old me behind a locked door, counting breaths, wishing the world would go back to its right shape. I don't know what changed between then and now. Maybe nothing. Maybe the world never had one shape. Maybe it was always this. Danger braided with mercy, fear braided with time. Eli didn't become safe because the facts changed. He felt safe because I learned a different language for the same facts. We never talked about that day with the officers. Once, though, when a cartoon character fell and popped back up, Eli made a sound I recognized from far away. The kettle scream, folded small. His shoulders tightened and then let go. He glanced at me to see if I would flinch. I didn't. I handed him a peppermint. He laughed, a real one, and the moment passed like weather. Out on the path, a jogger clapped once, twice, like an accidental applause. The care home staff tell me he asks about Sunday colors on Thursdays to make sure time still works. He likes rules that feel like gravity. I get that. Every week when he leaves, he says my name and taps the door twice. Once for now, once for then. The sound is small, but the house carries it, I swear. When the staff buckle him in, he holds the peppermint tin like a trophy. Routine is a kind of bridge you build from both sides. If you walked by our fence on a Sunday morning, you might hear laughter and canned theme songs, the rustle of candy wrappers, the quiet of two people not needing the same words. You might think nothing of it, just another living room in another grey row of homes. But to me, every frame of those silly shows is proof the world can sometimes stitch itself back together. Let's not meet, I used to pray. Now I set the metal dish on the table and think, let's meet every Sunday.